Cristina, it's so great to be able to be with you today, all the way from Spain, where it's hot. I can't wait to learn a little bit more about you and your work. So tell me, how did you start designing quilts? Love to know that.
I have never heard about patchwork until I watched the movie How to Make an American Quilt in 1996. And I did my first quilt in 1999 when I got pregnant from my son. But what really, really got me into this is when I started thinking about having a long arm quilting business. So I bought my first long arm in 2005, and I entered my first machine quilting contest in 2008. Basically, more than a piecer, P-I-E-C-E-R, I am a machine quilter. So I quickly realized that I wanted to focus more on the machine quilting side of the process than the piecing. But if you do patchwork and you do any piecing at all, what do? You do whole cloth quilts. Mm-hmm. My specialty is whole cloth quilts with no piecing at all. Mm-hmm. So in 2008, I started designing whole cloth quilts, and they were traditional. But then in 2015, I watched a segment from QNN TV, which is not anymore. And they talk about pictorial whole cloth quilts based on coloring books for adults. And I thought, what is that? So the next thing I did, I went to a bookshop the next day and I bought 4 or 5, and I was hooked. So my first pictorial whole cloth quilts were basically based on someone else's work, obviously with their written permission. But since the pandemic, I have started designing my own whole cloths.
Mm-hmm. So, that's great. Yeah. So what motivates you artistically?
Children. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. My childhood. Uh-huh. My games with my cousins, our world, the way we used to, when I think about quilts, I think about those child games, all the happy memories that I have from playing with my cousins. They are all over my head. To be honest with you, this is what really, really motivates me. My childhood, and also ultimately, I'm not afraid of making mistakes anymore as far as painting is concerned. So I've been doing watercolors for the last 3 years, and I'm not a painter and I will never be a painter. But what really, really motivates me is, color. I want to see color in my life. These are the 2 things that motivates me: color, bright colors, or depending on my mood, because at the moment it is so hot here, but all I want is autumn colors, winter colors.
Right.
So my quilts, I can tell you what I was doing at that time when I did that quilt. Mm-hmm. Because, depending on the time of the year, I do something different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Isn't it funny how weather and just life around us influences our work?
Very much, very much.
Yeah. So when you start a project, do you plan your work out ahead of time, or do you just dive in and just get going and start playing?
To be honest with you, I plan, but quite often I stop. For instance, I use the iPad all the time to do something, but I have several projects at the same time. So I might go to enlarge something that I have done on the iPad, and I keep it on my workshop, the papers. And then I decide, I'll go to do something else. In theory, I pre-plan, but not really.
Yeah, you have to let your heart speak in your work and make changes along the way. Yeah. So how do you manage your creative time? Do you schedule time in your studio all the time, or do you only work when you're inspired?
I don't, I don't, I don't schedule time in my studio. Basically, I am in my studio all day, 7 days a week, because
You happy?
I work from home.
Uh-huh.
So even on weekends, I might not be quilting, but I'm doing coloring, I'm doing painting. But when I finish the painting, I go to the iPad and think, okay, I can do this. So this is a non-stop thing.
Yes, yes. So I want to know, do you finish all your projects, or do you have a lot of unfinished projects?
A lot.
Okay, good, not just me.
I'm
Tell-
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So tell us a little bit about your studio and what it looks like.
Messy. It is quite messy.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we live on the first floor.
Uh-huh.
We have the second floor dedicated to the long arm quilting business and my workshop. But I must tell you that I have things, this is a three floors house,
Uh-huh.
big, and I have things everywhere.
Uh-huh. 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 Yeah. No, that's the way my house is too. So, yep. I envy the
Because,
people
for
that have
instance,
all of
at the
things.
moment, I am in the attic.
Uh-huh.
So I have things here, but I also have things in the workshop, and I also have things where we live.
Mhm.
And
Mhm. Mhm.
so quite often I don't find what I'm looking for, so I buy some.
Yes. Put in an order today to Amazon for something I couldn't find.
Absolutely. No, I'm a mess.
No, but you create amazing work. So you mentioned that you use an iPad. Do you use a sketchbook or a journal?
I should.
Why do you think you should?
Well, I've tried to have a sketchbook, and sometimes I think, okay, I'm going to do that. And I keep it for 10 days, maximum 14 or 15 days. And then something comes up, but I believe that a sketchbook would be very, very beneficial because I would keep track of what I do and what I was thinking about. I believe that I have everything in my head, but it's really nice to see, you know, but to see what I was thinking about. And quite often I find, something that had been in a drawer for years, and I become, amused, like, oh, this is what I was doing. And so, but in a way, the iPad is like a sketchbook because I use Procreate, which is an app for the iPad, and I can see what I've been doing in the last few years. So it's not a sketchbook, but it could work like that.
Yeah.
And also there is something very, very powerful, which is our mobile phones. I guess you get messages every day saying, memories from 2 years ago, 1 year ago. And they also give you photos related to today. Let's say, okay, for instance, my cats, my two cats together. So today I got memories from photos from them in the last 2 years because they are 2 years old when they were together.
Mhm.
So I found that the mobile phone is also like a journal of your work.
Yep, I agree. I agree. So you travel quite a bit and teach. So do you create while you're on planes and in waiting areas? And what do you take with you?
again, the iPad is a very good thing. And the thing about traveling is, let me tell you, let me give you an example. I've been to New England in June for 3 weeks, and I've stayed in several homes. I've been to Vermont, I've been to New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. It's quite amazing to be able to stay at someone's home and see, what they see when they wake up. All that greenery. Our land is dry at the moment. It's like Arizona. And so to be able to see, and that is quite an inspiration, because I'm not, the first time in my life that I've seen a hummingbird was last June.
Wow, aren't they beautiful?
You only find hummingbirds in America.
Really?
So, yes. So
Huh.
it's only in America, or chipmunks and all those species. And so you can only do that if you travel. And so that has been a big inspiration for me. All that greenery, the rain, all that is so different from what I'm used to. But on the other hand, last year, I taught at the Pacific International Quilt Festival in Santa Clara, California, and Houston Quilt Festival. And let me tell you something. I went by train from San Francisco to Houston.
Oh, wow. Wow. You got to see a whole lot of the country.
I love traveling by train. And traveling by train gives me the chance to see the landscape, to see people, and it's quite inspiring. So it's traveling by plane. Okay, I have to go by plane to the States, but
Right.
in the States, I love trains.
Interesting. Wow, that's great. So
Yes.
how often do you start a new project, and do you work on more than one at a time?
Yes, I work from, I don't know how many projects I have going on at the moment. I don't know. But yes, and so what was your question? Do I have more than one project?
Yeah, so how often do you start a new project?
I cannot say really,
Okay, and you work
because
on more than one at a time.
yes, all the time, and all the time I'm finishing projects. There was something, I did something last winter, a 100 days challenge from SAQA, SAQA, and that gives me a purpose. So my challenge, because I set up a challenge for my 100 days, was to use, to only work with fabrics that I had in my stash, but basically I challenged myself to use all those fabrics that had been in my stash for years, that I don't know how, but at some point I got them and they didn't appeal to me. So I challenged myself to work on those fabrics, and I learned a lot from that. You're always hearing, you have to get out of your comfort zone to learn, and it's right. I'm the kind of person who, who hardly gets out of their comfort zone, but after this challenge, I'm more confident on trying new things.
How do you think that's going to impact your work coming in the future?
I see different quilts in the future. I'm already creating different quilts. Basically, I become hooked on ombre fabrics, OMBRE fabrics. So I'm experimenting with those color changes, and I have also started to adding hand embroidery to those finished quilts. I used to do everything by machine, but after this challenge, I have become comfortable hand sewing, hand embroidery. I'm adding more and more organic embroidery to my quilts now after this challenge.
Good. Which part of the quilt design process is your favorite, and which part is a challenge for you?
Challenge. Well, as far as pictorial whole cloth quilts, to be honest with you, the background. I know that, let's say a girl or two girls, or I know what they are doing, but sometimes I don't know what to do in the background. Because quite often you think, okay, this is the sky. But when you have a whole cloth piece, okay, you have to make things, you have to quilt that, but in paper that is just white. So quite often the background is quite a challenge. And also, what is the most rewarding part?
Yeah, which is your favorite part of making a quilt?
Thinking about it. Playing with the iPad and changing things. A lot of what I do is previously done on the iPad. So I love playing with color, with adding things. And so the design part is probably one of my favorites, but I also enjoy machine quilting. So
cool.
I love what I do. So
it's obvious. It's so obvious, and especially like your enthusiasm and your work. So now that you're adding hand stitching and things to it, how do you know when a piece is finished and needs no more work?
You know what I do? I take pictures every day of what I do. And at some point, I see the picture that day and I think, no, I shouldn't add more hand stitching. It's too much. And sometimes I undo some hand stitching because it's too much. Again, the mobile phone is quite a big help for me, because when you see the quilt, okay, you don't have perspective. You need to see that from a distance. I use photographs as a helper. And I also have my husband, which is a big helper. And sometimes I'm stuck and he says, it is okay. I like it. You don't need to add any more. I said, sure. So.
Yeah. So when was the first time you remember realizing that you were a creative person?
I didn't see myself as an artist until my husband kept telling me, you are an artist. And I said, no, I am a quilter. And he said, you are creating things. You are not just reproducing what someone else has done. So it took me, it wasn't me, it was my husband's.
So good. When you think about creative people, what traits do you think that creative people have compared to people who are not creative?
Well, the only thing that, apart from my husband, the thing that really got me into thinking that I am creative is when I lost the fear of doing something wrong. So I think a creative person is someone who is not afraid of making mistakes. There are no mistakes. They just learn and experiment and try this and try that and see, okay, I should add more. And in a way, I believe that anyone is creative as long as they are not afraid, as long as they don't hear someone else's voice saying, you will never, ever be able to do anything good. You don't know how to draw. You don't know how to, as soon as you forget about doing things properly, you start creating. You might never be a Van Gogh or a Rembrandt. You don't have to. Okay, so
just need to do the work.
Do what really, really gives you joy. And I always tell people, okay, you remember when you were a child and you loved drawing and painting and using your pencils and doing collages. Why don't you do it again? Who's going to stop you?
Yeah.
You have nothing to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to start wrapping this up now. So tell us a little bit about the workshops. You mentioned that you traveled to the States and have taught. So what kind of workshops do you teach and how can people get a hold of you?
All right. I will send you my website address. And I usually teach at Houston, at my QSO shows. I will send you, the links. Okay. I've also appeared at the Quilt Show with Alex Anderson, and Ricky Teams. And I teach, one of my best-selling classes is iPad for quilters, which people love because I told them how to make the most of their iPad as far as quilting is concerned. But people also love my whimsical, pictorial signature style. If you love vintage illustration, if you love pictorial whole cloth, that's my thing. All right, but I have also started teaching improvisational piecing. And you think, what is that? There are no patterns there. It's all about cutting, sewing, cutting again, sewing, and forget about matching points. I find that quite rewarding, quite liberating. Improvisational piecing, machine quilting, and iPad for quilters.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah. And where can people see your work? On your website?
At my website. Yes, at my website.
Okay. And then you're on social media also, correct?
Yes, that's right. So I will send you the links to my Facebook page and to my my Facebook page, my Instagram page. All right. And what else? I don't know.
Yeah. We have a few more minutes. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
No, I'm quite nervous.
Oh, you did great.
Yeah.
You did great. So here, I'll stop recording now. Let's see.
So also I want people to know that I work both online. I give virtual workshops and lectures as well as in person. And I am going to Houston and the Pacific International Quilt Festival in Santa Clara in October. But I'm also going to New England next April. So I'm already receiving booking requests from quilt shops and quilt guilds in New England. So if you can say that, okay. Because whenever I go to the US, I always try to have as many bookings as possible because the airline ticket is
I'll stop.